Well, greetings, imagination connoisseurs. Once again, it is I, your Duke of Dope Discourse, your master of fun and wonder, your viceroy of verisimilitude, your sommelier of cinema, your archbishop of Banterbury, and your chancellor of cheerfulness. And lest we not forget, your existential Mr. Rogers, Robert Meyer Burnett, coming at you, Robcasting at you from the Robservatory. This is Robservations, the show about something, episode number 443. My God, I'm coming at you, you imagination connoisseurs, you members of this, the Post-Geek Singularity. And you know, things might be crazy now, and you never know what things are going to happen that make you just bubble up with joy. Just there are things that you find out that you just, on one hand, you can't help but just be amazed by them happening, and then on the other hand, just overjoyed. I mean, I can't explain this, but I have to tell you what I'm talking about. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. Guess what got renewed for season 3? Oh. Manifest. NBC's Manifest got renewed for season 3. That's what got renewed. The show that I just watch every week and just find it inexplicable that it actually made it to the air. A show where the writing staff has no idea where their central premise is headed. They have no clue. It's one of those shows like Lost. It's like, okay, we're just going to keep writing, and maybe one day people will figure out that I figured out they had nowhere to go after seeing the pilot. But let me just tell you, we're going to get a 3rd season of my favorite show that I've ever loved and hated at the same time. Manifest is nothing if it's just a big pile of gobbledygook that has a cast that no matter what outlandish shit they tell them to say, this cast will say it and sell it and make you believe, ladies and gentlemen. And I couldn't be happier. And my happiness, I'm sending all the love in the world out to my friend Terje in Norway. And one day I'm going to say his name right. It's too hard. These Norwegian names are too hard. But he was having a bad day. He called me up right before I went on, so I'm sending all the love out. He came with us when we went and saw Skyfall in London in 2012. And hopefully we're going to go see No Time to Die. You never know. Because after Manifest comes back for season 3, it was on the bubble, ladies and gentlemen. And after the shocking revelation of the end of the season 2, where, oh, wait a minute, the plane that landed with all these people, oops, they might have actually been dead. I mean, the show just gets more and more ridiculous. I just can't even tell you how excited I am that I'm looking at the wrong camera because I switched cameras. I'm looking at this camera. I realized I should have been on this camera. I've been talking. This is how giddy I am. I'm so happy that Manifest is coming back, as you might know. Now I'll tell you, not to be outdone. Let me get back to where I know what I'm doing. You know, it's one of the risks of producing your own show. So, as many of you know, Dieter Bastian, you've seen his videos, you've heard him talk. He's been getting me some European physical media you can't get over here, such as the 4K restoration of David Cronenberg's Crash, which first time on HD. Happy to have that. He also sent me this film, Bitch Slap. Not for me, but for him. He wanted me to get it signed by Erin Cummings. You know her. You love her. She's feisty. If you ever watched the John Campea show, she's been in a million different things. Unfortunately, she has not been on Manifest yet. And if I might make a plea, if Manifest could use anybody on that show, it is Erin Cummings. But I sat down with her yesterday. I went to a restaurant for the first time in 3 months, and I took this disc with me. And after we were on the John Campea show together, she signed it. And I promised Dieter that I would put it on video.
So here we are at Restaurant Dieter, and I am here with who? Who might you be?
Hi, my name is Erin Cummings, and I play Hell in the feature film Bitch Slap. And Dieter, guten Tag, I'd like to say hello and thank you for purchasing the German Blu-ray edition of Bitch Slap. I am going to be signing this per your request on video with one of Hell's famous catchphrases.
You know, he's got a fixation on Jennifer Lawrence. What do you think about Jennifer Lawrence?
You know, I had a sex dream about Jennifer Lawrence one time. It was crazy. So she and I, we were hanging out. We were friends. We were like girlfriends in college. We were in the same sorority. So she and I were roommates. And then one night she came home slightly tipsy, and then just some stuff happened. Probably not of any interest to you.
Why isn't that story on the show?
All right, ram this in your clam bake bitch cakes. Love,
You've just made me a hero.
Erin Cummings. And you know what, Dieter? I'm also going to send Rob a few things to send with you, to send to you, that are just going to accompany this. I got to dig through my little Bitch Slap treasure trove, but a couple little extra hidden things that not everyone in the general public has. But for you, absolutely. I'm glad that you will have them, and I hope that you will enjoy them with all the love that they are being sent with.
Wow. Well, you went above and beyond. Thank you so much.
You're very welcome.
That's the kind of service we here at Robservations can provide to our friends all over the world. So thank you for that. I didn't read this article about Manifest. I got to read it because how excited am I? Very, very excited. As a matter of fact, I think I might be the only person in the United States that's as excited about Manifest coming back as I am. NBC is firming up the remainder of its scripted lineup. The network on Monday night handed out a third season to bubble drama Manifest. It's not a drama about bubbles. When a show is on the bubble, it means they don't know if it's going to get canceled or come back. Manifest has been on the bubble. I think Manifest was on the bubble when they pitched it, actually, before even the pilot was shot. But let's just say it was on the bubble after the end of the first season. Obviously, it should be on the bubble its second season, and I don't know, man. I think the third time's the charm, but they get a third season, so oh my God. Bubble drama Manifest, as it also canceled 3 rookie series, Bluff City Law, never heard of it, and comedies Sunnyside and Indebted. Manifest, a co-production between Warner Brothers TV and Universal TV, and from creator Jeff Rake, averaged a 1.5 rating among the advertiser-coveted adults 18 to 49 demo, and a 7.7 million total viewers with 7 days of delayed viewing. The sophomore plane crash drama starring Melissa Roxburgh and Josh Dallas, and by the way, what a cast they are. And I mean that sincerely, actually. I think Josh Dallas should be in every show after this is over. Also improved NBC's Monday at 10 p.m. slot, 88% in the demo versus a year ago. I guess that means more people are watching Manifest. I can't wait until Creation puts on a Manifest convention, because I think me and the 6 people that will go are going to have a bang-up time, and I will pay the extra money to make sure that I get autographs from all of the cast members. Anyway, I don't need to read any more of that article. And for those of you who watch this show for any length of time, guess what else there's an article about? Oh, can I just tell you? I will tell you, because I'll read the article. Quibi. Ladies and gentlemen, my ongoing fascination with Quibi. I know it's kind of it's a runner. You know, they call jokes runners when they continue on, and I got to put my glasses on to read this. I don't want to miss this. Look at this picture of Meg Whitman and Jeffrey Katzenberg. Aren't they a pair? I mean, it's like when Anti-Entity said that in Beyond Thunderdome. Ain't we a pair? They certainly are. The outlook doesn't look that good for Jeffrey Katzenberg and Meg Whitman's struggling startup Quibi. By the way, I have to say I took this off of Dark Horizons, Garth Franklin's site. I love Dark Horizons. It's a news aggregate site, but I go there in the morning every single day. I love what Garth Franklin does. The Wall Street Journal is behind a paywall, which I mean, I've got so many subscriptions. I didn't have the Wall Street Journal subscription, and I just didn't sign up for it because I'd have to put in my credit card, and my wallet was inside, and I was out here. So I'm like, you know what? I'll just take Garth Franklin's account of the Wall Street Journal article. But if you want to go to the Wall Street Journal, they have a bigger article about this. The outlook doesn't look that good for Jeffrey Katzenberg and Meg Whitman's struggling startup Quibi, according to a lengthy report in the Wall Street Journal. Said piece goes into the infighting between Katzenberg and Whitman and reports that the short-form video subscription service had been projecting that it would sign up 7.4 million subscribers in its first year of operation. Instead, at the service's current pace, it is estimated it will not even reach 2 million paying subscribers by that point. I would like to know who projected that it was going to sign up 7.4 million people. Where did they get their data? But anyway, Quibi's app download peaked at 379,000 on its April 6th launch day and have not exceeded 20,000 on any day in the first week of June, according to analytics firm Sensor Tower. From April 6th to May 28th, the app had been downloaded about 4 million times. Of those, just 30% are daily active users. Another test comes next month as the service's 90-day free offer starts to run out, and so people will have to pay for the service if they want to continue it. For now, the revival of Reno 911 has been the most popular show on the service, but reviews for shows on Quibi have been decidedly mixed. Katzenberg had previously blamed the app's poor showing on the COVID-19 outbreak, though haven't spoken of other issues like the lack of availability to watch its content on TVs until the last few weeks, in which AirPlay and Chromecast functionality was finally added. There has also been other problems. Quibi's head of brand and content marketing exited just 2 weeks after launch. Advertisers have reportedly sought to renegotiate and dial down their spending commitments. Execs on the service are taking a 10% salary cut, and Quibi is being sued by interactive video startup Echo over their Turnstile feature. Though it raised about $1.75 billion in funding, with its cash burn rate, Quibi expects it will need an additional $200 million by the second half of 2021. The piece also indicated that Katzenberg originally wanted to call it Omakase, which is a chef-selected sushi restaurant order, until Meg Whitman pushed back. Omakase. They should have called it that. Head over to the Wall Street Journal for the full report. Look, man, I don't want to seem like a dick. Maybe people think I'm a dick, but I don't want to seem like a dick. I take no real joy in watching Quibi fail so spectacularly. But what I just don't understand is how something so wrong-headed, and what I mean by wrong-headed is this idea that people want to watch small, bite-sized things on the go from 4 to 10 minutes. That's what a Quibi is. This was conventional wisdom maybe 10 years ago. And while a lot of YouTube creators know that you want to have pieces that are just over 10 minutes, that helps with the analytics, I agree with that. But nobody wants, basically Quibi has done things like they've made movies and cut them up into these chunks. They didn't have it available on TV. Nobody really wants to sit down. This idea that you're supposed to make A-list programming, they got a lot of A-list talent involved. And there's things I want to see, like the 50 States of Terror show that Sam Raimi produced. I want to see that. I've heard a lot of it's pretty good. But I don't want to, let me binge it on Netflix or something. This whole idea of Quibi seemed to me the most out-of-touch idea ever. It was like if I went to my mom and said, Mom, you should start a streaming service, and it's something she would have come up with. And I don't mean to put my mom down. That's not a put down. It's just that it's just out of touch. My mom doesn't use streaming services. She would be like, I don't know what you're talking about, but maybe short forms are better. I just find the whole thing incredible, and it's just flaming out. Like, who's going to give them another $200 million? The problem is people on the go. This idea that you're going to concentrate on well-produced A-list programming, and not all of it's A-list, but while you're running around, going places on trains and all that, I just think that this idea was so ill-conceived and wrong-headed. And I love watching what happens with it. I love watching this occur, and they should have known better. They should have known better. And yet they raised $1.75 billion and were able to do this, and it's not working. And I just, with all of the people that do research, how did this get as far as it got? I just don't know. And I feel bad that I take so much joy in this. I don't know what that says about me. Maybe I'm just a dick. But I have to say that, I mean, it just keeps going. Just keeps going. Well, now, Scott Mendelson over at Forbes, I have a love-hate relationship with Scott Mendelson. I read every one of his columns. Sometimes, like, it pissed me off when he was spoiling certain Avengers plot points when the movie first came out. I don't know why he does that. But sometimes he writes columns that I'm like, wait, where did you get this? Like, where did this come from? Today's column, June 16th, he published this at 10 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time. Scott Mendelson put this out, and I thought that I would share it because why not? The article, box office. Chris Nolan could be setting up TENET to fail. I know. That's a very clickbaity headline. But still, I got sucked in. Worked for me. So I was going to read it anyway, but here we go. Whether or not TENET jolts... why isn't this? Hang on. Here we go. Whether or not TENET jolts the movie theaters back to life in late July, Chris Nolan's buzzy blockbuster is almost certain to earn much less money opening this summer than it would opening at a later, safer time. I was struck by the almost random nature of TENET's date change this past Friday. If it was to move, why not just take Wonder Woman 1984's place on August 14th? Moving to July 31st still puts it, as of this moment, 1 week after Disney's Mulan, thus forfeiting the first big summer movie of the season, Hook, that director Chris Nolan so obviously craves. However, even if the Disney's Nicky Caro-directed action drama moves, the issue concerning the coronavirus that exists on July 16th at around 7 p.m., 1 month from tonight, will still exist on July 31st. Nolan is either unduly optimistic or willing to let his movie be a martyr. I'm like, I don't understand why anybody would get that. No one wants their movie to be a martyr. Nobody makes a giant summer tentpole and wants it to not do well, ever. Yes, the New York Times is reporting that, as presumed by many of us, it was writer-director Nolan's urging that the John David Washington, Robert Pattinson film still open in July as originally intended. Warner Brothers otherwise likely would have delayed the film back in mid-March when they set Wonder Woman 84 from June 5th to August 14th. To be fair, it wasn't absurd to presume that the time that months of social distancing combined with rigorous government-backed testing and citizens willing to take reasonable precautions like wearing a mask would alleviate much of the future harm by mid-July. But it may be absurd now. Presuming TENET really does open in late July, and theaters admittedly can't wait forever, it will almost certainly earn less, possibly much less, than it otherwise would have had the film opened either A, during optimal conditions, or B, later this year or sometime next year. Yes, it's possible that the apparent surges and spikes in new infections could A, be somewhat due to the improved testing, and B, get somewhat under control in the next 7 weeks. And that may be essential to success, but presuming things don't get excessively better or excessively worse, TENET remains both the ideal movie to open the floodgates and likely to take a huge hit compared to idealistic predictions. Now, I agree with all of those things, actually. Yes, TENET is a big-budget original, allegedly mind-blowing and crowd-pleasing, but from the one director who can allegedly, Interstellar opened with $49 million way back in November of 2014, open a mega-budget movie sans IP or franchise. And yeah, since it's not a franchise installment, an underperformance won't harm any of WB's ongoing brands. The narrative around TENET is that it's such a triumph that it's going to get superb word of mouth and long legs to account for a smaller than otherwise expected opening weekend. However, there are only a handful of movies since 2000 which have opened below 50 million and topped 200 million domestic. They are Shrek, My Big Fat Greek Wedding, Wedding Crashers, and The Hangover. And don't forget the Wednesday through Sunday debut of Pirates 1 and Batman Begins. Every other 200 million plus grosser since The Sixth Sense opened between 52 million, Superman Returns during its 108 million Wednesday through Tuesday Independence Day debut in 2006, and 357 million, Avengers Endgame. So yes, it's possible if the film plays like a 1980s style mega hit, think Ghostbusters, Back to the Future, Beverly Hills Cop, or a mid-90s tentpole, think Twister. However, there are a few caveats which have me half convinced that Nolan is willing to let his tentpole take a bath if it helps the movie theaters and theater chains survive to November. Those films were acclaimed and popular and crowd pleasers. They generally, save for the R-rated comedies, played to kids and earned repeat business. Even presuming the time inversion actioner is suitably crowd pleasing, how kid-friendly is it? And even if it's safe for kids, will audiences risk danger and or brave non-ideal theatrical experiences to see it twice? There were reports of the film's prologue causing distress and unrest among younger viewers in IMAX showings of Star Wars 9. To be fair, even if Tenet's frighteningly real terrorist season opera house and very nearly kill everyone in attendance prologue wasn't much more intense than the bank robbery and skyjacking prologues of The Dark Knight and The Dark Knight Rises, Rise of Skywalker arguably played younger than I Am Legend and Mission Impossible Ghost Protocol. Its appropriateness for kids matters, since otherwise interested adult moviegoers may not feel comfortable for financial and or safety reasons hiring a babysitter for kids too young to enjoy the PG-13 action thriller. That's okay. Oh, it's these. It's so hard to read Forbes online or to put these articles up because it always sticks, as it is right now. See, I can't move the article. That's okay because Tenet will blow our minds once we see it. See again. This has happened before. Even if I'm just going to keep going on. Even if I'm being overly pessimistic, there is arguable nobility in releasing Tenet at a time that's of greater benefit to the theaters than to the studio. Because yes, Nolan himself, along with the studio, will make less money via back-end deals if the film performs less well. Predicting Tenet's box office is a fool's game. But I don't know where I was. See, it's just it's jumping around. Here we go. Sorry about that. Here we go. See, it jumps all over the place. Even if I'm being overly pessimistic, there's arguably nobility in releasing Tenet at a time that's of greater benefit to the theaters than to the studio. Because yes, Nolan himself, along with the studio, will make less money via back-end deals if the film performs less well. Predicting Tenet's box office is a fool's game, but it is almost certain to earn noticeably less here and abroad than it would have in either a COVID-free world at a later time. Nolan is seemingly sacrificing his own tentpole for the sake of struggling movie theaters. That would be downright heroic if we weren't also in the middle of a pandemic. Now, first of all, look, I don't think no one is going to help movie theaters by sacrificing their bottom line. And I think Mendelsohn is completely wrong with this idea because a studio can't, like, no one wants to lose money. You can't tell the people that you borrowed the money from that you made the movie that, hey, we're going to help movie theaters, so we're going to release this into movie theaters during a pandemic. COVID cases in the United States are increasing. People are talking about maybe 200,000 people will die. I mean, by October, I'm looking at videos of people in Orange County saying, I don't need to wear a mask. I can't breathe in my own carbon dioxide. It wasn't meant to be this way. And the monumental stupidity that is on display in this country when it comes to this pandemic and with everything else that's been going on. And by the way, I don't mean to call all of my fellow citizens stupid, but how hard is it to wear a mask? I mean, they've been able to prove that frontline workers, doctors, things like that, they didn't get, a lot of people caught it, but not as much as you would think because they wore masks. And it's not such a hard thing to deal with. And I just think that, maybe Tenet could play, we talked about this yesterday, play longer in theaters if people would go, if it has great word of mouth and it really is an experience. Yeah, there's not a lot of movies in the theaters, so people might brave those theaters. But right now, we're going to see with all the protests that have gone on, they've opened up, things are talking about closing Florida back down, I read today, because of the rising COVID cases there. It's all science. You can choose to believe it or not, but that doesn't make it less true. So it's going to be interesting to see where all of this goes. I just don't think that, look, I think Christopher Nolan wanted this movie to come out. It was always scheduled to open on July 17th. They were maybe hoping that theaters would be open and all over the world, but there's new outbreaks of COVID in China. They're talking about closing the theaters in Beijing and that 40% of them might not ever open, which means that the worldwide box office has taken a major, major hit. And hopefully theaters are saying we're going to open. Are they going to open? I don't know if they are, but I think that the world that we're living in, it's a little sketchy right now. And the idea that we're just going to open up theaters and people are going to go to the movies, especially a movie like this, that's arguably probably one of the most expensive movies, not as expensive as Batman v Superman, but certainly one of the most expensive movies Warner Brothers has made because Chris Nolan is a very bankable director. And he's done very, very well for Warner Brothers. And he's he's probably a lifer at Warner Brothers, even though Interstellar was a co-production. I could see Christopher Nolan spending his entire career making movies for Warner Brothers. Why would they let him go? But nobody wants to lose money. And if the theaters aren't open to the point where Warner Brothers can't see, they're going to push this movie. They'll push it like they pushed other films, Fast and the Furious, the Fast Family, whatever they're calling Fast 9, the Fast Saga. They pushed it a year. And I can imagine, I'm willing to bet that Tenet does not open on July 31st. If I had to place a bet, I would say it's not going to open. Again, a lot can happen in 45 days, but we'll see. It's just that we haven't really been as smart as we should be about testing and figuring out what's going on. It's rough. I just don't see Tenet opening. I think it's too expensive. I think unless they get a real handle on this virus and they stop cases rising in places around the country, I can't see it happening. But we'll see. Right now, I would give it. I think there's a 65% chance it won't open. I could be wrong. Somebody pointed out to me the other day that on the very first episode of this series, Robservations 1, I absolutely predicted at the end of Avengers Endgame that Captain America would go back in time and live his life out with Peggy. Now, I didn't know that. I just assumed that's what would happen based on, I don't know, my own storytelling sensibility or what I thought would happen. I didn't even remember I said that, but somebody pointed that out to me the other day, and I was like, oh. So there you go. So I give it a 65% chance that Tenet is not going to open on July 31st. What do you all think? And we'll see. We'll see. I really want to see it. Like I said, I haven't wanted to see a movie as much as I've wanted to see Tenet in a long time. And I'm really, really, really looking forward to it. So I think it's going to be great. I love Inception. If it is a spiritual sequel or even a sort of stealth sequel to Inception, I would love that. But we're going to find out. That's the great thing about all this. We're going to find out. We're going to find out soon enough. And so there you go. I've got some letters. Well, hang on. Let's see what I've got here. What do I have here? Ian Samuels has written a letter. Rob and fellow Robservationists, After the groundbreaking event of the first partly private investment space program being launched with the SpaceX manned Dragon probe going to the ISS, let us look at another astronomical first, the first extrasolar planet discovered. An extrasolar planet, just to make clear, is a planet that orbits a sun other than our own. In December 1995, Swiss astronomer Michael Meyer, pronounced Michel Mayor, Michel Mayor, astronomer Michel Mayor, discovers that the star 51 Pegasi, a star in the constellation of Pegasus, is wobbling. What can make a sun wobble? The answer was a gas giant like Jupiter, but as close as Mercury is to our sun. The planet, which is given the identity 52 Pegasi b, is not only the first planet to be discovered orbiting another sun, but also a new category of planet, one dubbed a hot Jupiter. It is even given the nickname of Bellerophon after the Greek hero who tamed the winged horse Pegasus, also the name of a ship in Forbidden Planet, where Morbius was on. Bellerophon, as mentioned, is a gas giant like Jupiter, but it's much closer to the sun. This means it's much hotter, so hot that water cannot exist. But it does have clouds and has storms at least as big as the ones on Jupiter, with winds in excess of 1,000 kilometers or miles per hour. But the clouds are not made from water vapor. Instead, because of the intense heat and pressure from being so close to the sun, those clouds will be made of iron vapor. Clouds made of iron, which leads to rain consisting of liquid iron. It was exciting times and led to the Kepler project, where in 2009 the Kepler Space Telescope was launched to search for extrasolar planets, but specifically Earth-like worlds. Kepler uses an interesting technique different from those used to discover Bellerophon. It looks at stars and looks for the tiniest dip in the light being emitted. Consider seeing the light from a lighthouse from 10 miles away and the dip in the light being emitted from a moth flying past. That is what Kepler is looking for as a planet passes the star. It can also identify gases in the atmosphere of that planet from the spectrum of light. Fascinating stuff. Kepler has discovered more than 1,000 Earth-like planets. Unfortunately, since its discovery, the boring gits at the International Astronomical Union decided to have a conference to give the extrasolar planets discovered so-called proper names. And so Bellerophon, which to me is a perfectly good name, was renamed Dimidium, a Latin word meaning half, as it is half the mass of Jupiter. The planet Dimidium? I don't like that. Hope this was interesting, and if anyone would like to hear about even more interesting second extrasolar planet that was discovered that is even more dangerously close to its sun, then I am happy to do a letter on that one. In this dark time, when we are still hiding inside in fear of this pandemic, and despite the efforts of people like Martin Luther King Jr., Malcolm X, and Rosa Parks, there are still overly privileged white persons who still go to their basic Neanderthal instincts that are unfortunately in positions of authority, who feel that they are free to murder innocent people just because of the color of their skin. It is at times like these that we should remember the things that bind us more than the things that divide us. I see that this is our inclusive Post-Geek Singularity. Our corner of geekdom is one of the things that brings us together, and I hope this is something none of us proud members of the Post-Geek Singularity ever forget. Proud to be geeky and weird, proud to be a member of the Post-Geek Singularity. Ian, for a while there, Ian, I thought they're gonna take this south, but you pulled it out there at the end. I want to thank you for a lovely letter, and I agree with you. I do. I think that we have a good thing going here at the Post-Geek Singularity, and that's all because of you imagination connoisseurs that make this community what it is. Felipe Abrigo is back. Hi, Rob. Without disrespecting the glorious Wrath of Khan, but in Spock's funeral scene when Kirk says, "Of all the souls I've encountered in my travels, his was the most human," I can't help but imagine Spock getting out of the torpedo and pointing out, "Jim, I am not human," then going back inside. Laugh out loud. Well, I know we park our shuttlecraft in the same shuttle bay, but boy, every time I go to find mine, I just can't find it. There are too many shuttlecrafts here. Soon we will have to find a new and bigger shuttle bay. Ha ha ha. Greetings, Rob. Be safe and healthy, and say hi to your dogs for me. Well, Felipe, I will. They are not here. I took them out right before the show started, but thank you for a lovely letter. That would have changed the end of that movie. Nigel Lowry is here. Hi, Rob. Greetings from the UK, and I have 3 quick points I'd like to raise. First of all, apologies for my last letter. Watching you read it out, I realized how long it was. Despite my attempts to keep it to the point, which was my love of comics. Watching your latest video where you mentioned how you're going through your long boxes now, I recognize that as space limitations see me regularly pare my collections down to my essential issues. That still means I have 12 long boxes and 3 bookcases full of comics, collections, and books. My collection has a few favorite runs, but it is mainly devoted to my favorite artists. To my second point is, I know you have mentioned Bill Sienkiewicz, Moon Knight, and the new Teen Titans, Justice League, Sandman, and Alan Moore before, but I'm intrigued to know more of your tastes. What are some of your other favorite comics, and who are your favorite artists? Well, another one of my favorite artists of all time is Howard Chaykin. I'm a huge Howard Chaykin fan. American Flag was hugely influential to me, his original American Flag. And, I love that. I love Matt Wagner. I loved Grendel and Mage, but I liked Grendel perhaps more. I was a big Timothy Truman and Mike Grell fan when I started reading comics because Mike Grell was doing like Star Slayer and he had done Warlord and then he went over to Green Arrow, and I really liked that. I love George Perez. I know obviously from New Teen Titans, but I love George Perez as Wonder Woman. I'm a huge George Perez fan. What other comics? I used to love Timothy Truman. I loved like Grimjack, and these are all when I started reading comics. I mean, they were the people I was following. So there's a lot of modern artists I could bring up, but these are the people that I've been buying for years that I'm talking about. I like the X-Men artists. I like John Byrne, Dave Cockrum, Paul Smith, and obviously the California guys, the California style when they came in, like Jim Lee. I was a huge Jim Lee fanatic. Really enjoyed Jim Lee a great deal. But, probably the usual. And I liked a lot of the Image artists. I mean, I liked Todd McFarlane's art. I did. And, Mark Silvestri, all that stuff. Will Portacio. Those guys, I like the Image guys. There's a reason why they were able to break off and all go to create Image. But now I'm thinking about other people. I'm looking around. I loved Kevin Maguire when he was doing Justice League when he came out. I loved his faces. It was amazing. Finally, a recommendation. A series I loved that I see almost no mention of since it left the screens is the HBO show Carnival. I loved Carnival. The show is set in the Great Depression and follows a traveling carnival and the rise of a preacher who uses the new medium of radio to spread his ministry. Subtly at first, an underlying mythology is revealed to us as an avatar of light and an avatar of darkness who are destined to clash, ending a generational conflict around the detonation of the first nuclear bomb a few years away. The pacing is slow but picks up as the main story unfurls, and the high production values and period setting mean the show has a timeless quality. Clancy Brown is magnificent as Brother Justin, but the entire cast is great. The carnival is full of flawed but sympathetic characters, and the underlying mystery is intriguing. Unfortunately, the high production costs of shooting outside with regular new locations were met with low ratings. The series was planned as a 5-season story, but the show was sadly canceled after only 2. However, the 2 seasons do work on its own as a story arc and its opening act, which leaves the door open for more. Although that ship has sailed, I would love to have seen the conclusion of what would have been an epic series once completed. The mythology is enough to keep most imagination connoisseurs engaged, and I highly recommend the show. I loved the show. I thought it was terrific. Rob, did you ever catch it? Yes, I did. Well, I said I would keep this letter short-ish, so thanks again. Cheers, Nigel. Well, Nigel, yes, I was a big fan of that show. It was beautifully made. Acting was impeccable. I can't not love it because it was great. It was great. And I loved it. And it was beautifully made. Dave Atkin is here. And Dave Atkin says, "Hi, Rob. Longtime viewer and fan here. I love being part of your Zoom party the other day, and thanks for giving your time. You brought up your love of Prince, and I've got a good story I was going to talk about on the party, but I was wee shy, but a bit shy to speak up. My brother-in-law used to work in Manchester, England for the Academy organizing concerts and a Sixer before Prince died. They got a call about him wanting to do a concert in the big theater. It holds thousands, so they organized it. He also held a secret concert a couple of nights before in the Academy 3, which only holds 1,000 people, which was amazing to see. You hear of Prince demanding outlandish things, and sure enough, his manager called to ask the staff to paint the dressing room purple and that he was scared of lifts, so would have to use the stairs. When Prince appeared on the night, he drove himself, walked in like the icon he is, and he was really nice and made no demands. It was just his manager doing all the demands. And he did an amazing 2-hour show. Still amazed that he played such a small venue. Also talking about Rakim, have you seen the NPR Tiny Desk concert on YouTube? I have not. I've heard about that. Thanks for reading and love the show. Dave, I saw, this was back in the 90s. Prince announced a show. It was like announced at 3 p.m, and you went to the venue, and it was, it wasn't the Rainbow. Maybe it was. It wasn't the Rainbow. It was a it was one of the. It wasn't Gazar. It was on the Sunset Strip, and I forget which. Somebody will have to help me out here. But he announced the show, and if you got there in time, you could get in. And it was like only 1,000 people, and it was insane. I mean, the show was insane. Prince walked through the crowd as he was playing. It was an unbelievable show, and he did that a lot. Like when he would play here, you could go to his club, Paisley Park. Or no, it was Glam Slam downtown. It was Vertigo that it became Glam Slam. And if you could hang out there, and he would show up, and he showed up like the third night. He played like 3 nights, and the third night he played. So he would do that a lot. I mean, he would bring his band and go play an after show late into the evening and or early into the morning, whichever you prefer. But it was amazing. And as I said, I probably saw Prince live about 30 times. And he did a residency. He played here at the Forum, where he played 21 nights in a row, and I went to 4 of those shows. He was incredible, incredible. One of the greatest losses of the modern age is losing him, which is a bummer. Rule the Obscure is here. Hi, Rob. In yesterday's episode 441, when discussing Koba's question about the Showa versus Heisei eras of Godzilla films, you asked how to pronounce these Japanese words. Showa sounds like Shawa. Shawa. Think Han's nemesis. Shawa. And Heisei sounds like Heisei. There's a J-pop idol boy band called Heisei Jump, which is a play on words, as the members were all born in the Heisei era of the 90s. Just in case nobody got it, their debut single was called Heisei, to drive the point home. Of possible interest to imagination connoisseurs, the Japanese word Jedi, which means era, is often used when talking about Showa or Heisei. It is rumored that the word Jedi was inspired from Jedi, as Kurosawa's samurai films such as Hidden Fortress, which George Lucas has always cited as influences, belong to a genre of historical period dramas called Jedi Geki. Geki? And the most iconic actor of this genre, Toshiro Mifune, was the original casting choice for the original Jedi Obi-Wan Kenobi. Imagine Peter Jackson or Taika Waititi pronouncing Jedi, and it would sound just like Jedi. Actually, come to think of it, that's similar to how Palpatine pronounces it too. Jedi. Maybe an intentional tip of the hat. Also, Yoda is a Japanese family name, although not so common, just like the uncommon English family names Anakin, Ken Anakin, and Palpatine, or Palantine. Yes, Senator Palantine is a Palantine from Taxi Driver, which Marcia Lucas also edited. Disclaimer, I've never heard George Lucas confirm any of these words or names as conscious influences. They're just some observations over the years. I'm yet to read the Rinsler making of books. Maybe there's something about it in those. You've got to read those. Anyway, back to Japan. The Showa and Heisei eras are names given to the period of reign of Japanese emperors. The Heisei era started in 1989 and actually ended last year when the emperor abdicated to his son. Since May 2019, it has become the Reiwa Jedi, although Japan has adopted the Western Gregorian calendar into use for most things, the Japanese imperial calendar is still prevalent on government forms and throughout society. 1988 is a Showa year 63. 1989 is the Heisei year 1. 2000 is the Heisei year 12. 2020 is Reiwa year 2, etc. As you can imagine, it can be a bit confusing for foreigners. Incidentally, this is also a modern illustration of your issue about there being no year zero when people celebrate new decades. You've mentioned many times that you regard 1977 and 1993 as demarcation points in pop culture, i.e. things being pre or post Star Wars and Jurassic Park. In Japan, it is often pre-89, the Showa era, and post-1989, the Heisei era. Considering you've said 1989 was the most disappointing summer of your life, and you're apparently still dirty on Last Crusade. Yes, I am. If you were Japanese, that might come with another layer of significance. These eras are wider ranging in society than just films, whereas in the West, we immediately think of music from the 80s or 1990s as having a distinct sound or feel. For Japanese people, that would be more of a Showa versus Heisei vibe. Also, in much the same way we have Gen X, Gen Y, Millennials, etc., Japanese think of themselves as being from the Showa or Heisei generations. Anyone born in the last 12 months are the first of the Reiwa generation. That's very interesting. Again, these are just some observations based on my experiences as I lived in Japan for a few years. If there are any Japanese members of the Post-Geek Singularity listening, or Lynn in Tokyo, please jump in and correct or add anything. Remember, we do have Lynn Hobday, who is our woman in Japan, our famous, or well, she's famous to us, our most beloved Brit expat. I find it interesting to ponder the arbitrary nature of time and how humans have different ways to measure it. I hope this wasn't too inside baseball for the Post-Geek Singularity. At least now everybody knows how to pronounce correctly when discussing different eras of Godzilla, Kamen Rider, and Legend of the Galactic Heroes. Stay safe, everyone. Raoul the Obscure. Well, Raoul, or is it Rule? It's Rule the Obscure. The Showa, now I know Showa and Heisei. Okay. Obviously, you are paying attention to this show because there's a couple of deep cuts you referred to about things I've mentioned, which is very much appreciated. How cool is that? Omar94 is here. Hi, Rob. This might be hard for you to answer since it requires having a lot of good memory. Since you were a script reader, I'm curious to know what you thought was the best and worst script you ever read, regardless of whether it got made or not. Ooh, I've got an answer for you. Having read a number of film scripts, I would say the best script I ever read is Shane Black's original Last Boy Scout, and the worst was Michael France's original GoldenEye script. For those who enjoyed the Last Boy Scout movie, I'm glad you like it, but I think it's just okay. Having read the original script, I liked it infinitely more than the movie, as did I. Both Shane Black and Tony Scott, the director, said the original script was far better than the final film, since there was so much drama making that movie, with Black doing so many rewrites on set, as Bruce Willis and Joel Silver kept demanding changes. I don't know what Willis and Silver were thinking when they kept making Black change his script. If they made the original script, it would have been one of the best action movies ever, in my opinion. Despite being 165 pages, it was really well paced, with a tight and intricate story, compelling protagonists, menacing villains. All the problems I had with the movie were solved in the original script, like the backstories for both Joe Hallenbach and Jimmy Dix being better developed, and both characters being more likable. Milo being more threatening, Joe's reconciliation with his wife being stronger. It's true. And then you go, I don't know if, did I read this? I don't know. Maybe. No, because you talk more about. Okay. With the original GoldenEye script, I will say, despite saying it was the worst of the scripts I've had a chance to read, I do still think it's better than the final film. I know a lot of people like GoldenEye, but I only like the action sequence and the opening credits with Tina Turner's song. Everything else was just meh to me. The main problem with this script is it drags too much. It's 165 pages. And even though Shane Black's original Last Boy Scout is longer at 165 pages, it worked because Black did a better job with the story's pacing, so it was a much smoother read. That was when Michael France couldn't do it. It started really strong with an opening action scene on a train with a helicopter. It reminded me a lot of the final action scene at the end of Mission Impossible 1, and the first act was quite smoothly paced. By the second and third acts, it started to drag in many places. If France tightened those parts down, it would have been much better and made a better movie. I did like the changes France made. In his script, James Bond is better written, more compelling, and fleshed out than in the movie, and it's also not as physically tough as he gets injured a lot. Trevelyan was 60 years old rather than the same age as Bond, and there was a great flashback scene where Trevelyan was revealed to be a traitor when Bond is in the field with 2 other 00 agents who get killed in action. M was also male. I will say, having read the script, every time I kept visualizing Pierce Brosnan, Daniel Craig would always come into my head and replace Brosnan because the script was darker and more serious in the final film, and there was an airplane chase scene in the snow like Inspector. I think it was because when France wrote the script, Timothy Dalton was still in mind to return. Anyway, those are the best and worst scripts I've read. I'm curious to know what yours are. Live long and prosper, Omar94. Well, I have an answer to that. I've talked about that before on the show. The worst screenplay I ever read as a reader was called The First Jewish Evangelist. I do not remember who wrote it. Now, what was so great to me about this script was the reason I picked it. I believe I was working for CAA. I think for sure, because when I worked for CAA, the Creative Artists Agency is an agency where it's a big talent agency in Hollywood. So as a staff reader, you were required to take a couple of scripts off their unsolicited. They had a countertop with these unsolicited manuscripts, and there are things, if you want to write screenplays, there are things that readers know right away that you don't want to get saddled with those scripts if any of these things are true. One is if a script had 3 Brads in it. Because anybody worth their salt who knows anything about screenwriting knows you don't use a 3rd Brad. You don't use the middle Brad. You just put in 2. So if there was a 3rd Brad, it's like, oh man, I'm not staying away from that. I mean, I don't want to read that script. The second is if there was ever anything on the cover except the name of the title of them. So if there was pictures, and by the way, a caveat to that is screenplays are all typed in 12-point Courier, the font Courier. If you have a screenplay where the title of the screenplay on the cover was anything other than 12-point Courier, like a different font, or it was dressed up somehow, I wouldn't read that either. That's a telltale sign that what you're about to read is garbage. Not always, but for the most part. For a reader, when you're a reader, you want to read as many scripts as you can because you get paid per script. So you don't want to read, and reading awful scripts and you have to still read them and cover them. It's the worst thing ever. And the absolute worst thing is if there was a picture on the cover, any kind of like a drawing or whatever. But when you get all 3 Brads, it was the title is like drawn or it's got some big artwork. This movie, The First Jewish Evangelist, had all 3, and it had a ridiculous picture of a rabbi that was also supposed to look like Jesus, and it was just, so I took it on purpose. I was like, ooh, I want to read this, and it was truly wretched. And the story that I remember, and again, this was like 25 years ago, I read the script. It had something to do with the fact that the wall that separated heaven from hell was crumbling, and they needed to get a Jew to show up and run a telethon and make enough money so heaven could repair the wall between heaven and hell. I kid you not. And at least that's how I remember it. It was the worst. It was so bad. But, you have to marvel at it because you're at one of the biggest talent agencies that's ever existed in human history. A lot of money, a lot of power, and somehow this script got in the door. I don't know how, but I read it, and I think, to be honest, somewhere here, I have the original coverage I wrote on that script. Coverage is when you read a script, you write a synopsis of it. Usually it's a page long, unless the script's really long or something or convoluted. And then you write a page of notes or thoughts about the script. And you have to do it with every script. So I kept a lot of my coverage. It's I just don't know where it is. But man, oh man, let me just tell you. It was terrible. The best script I ever read, as I've talked about on this show many times, 1990. Gavin Polone, who's now a big producer, he writes things. He was an agent at Bauer Benedict, which is an agency that doesn't exist anymore. They merged and they became the United Talent Agency. Everything that Gavin Polone sent over, and it was when I was working for Joel Silver at Silver Pictures as a reader. By the way, this would be a good time to point out, guess what, ladies and gentlemen? Look what's out now on Blu-ray. That's right, available now. A movie I produced, The Hills Run Red. Scream Factory has released it on Blu-ray. You can get it today. It has 6.5 hours of new special features in addition to the 30-minute featurette I originally did for the film 11 years ago. But I was working for Joel Silver at the time, who also was the executive producer of this movie. And anything I had asked, there were two of us at Silver Pictures, two staff readers, and I asked that anything that came from Gavin Polone, I wanted to read it. And if memory serves, and I think I'm correct about this, well, Jonathan Batul, who wrote The Last Starfighter, he wrote a movie that he later directed called T-Rex. And I first read the script, and believe it or not, it's a Whoopi Goldberg goofy movie. The script was like Blade Runner meets Jurassic Park. It was amazing. The finished film didn't resemble the movie at all. But the script that I was sent, that I read, was Andy Kevin Walker's script for Seven, the David Fincher movie. Best script, best experience I ever had reading a screenplay. Now, like Omar said, when I read The Last Boy Scout, Shane Black's scripts when he was selling Last Boy Scout and he sold Long Kiss Goodnight, I mean, those are incredible reads. Not only was Seven an incredible read, it was just an incredible story, and it really appealed to me. And I just thought, and I had read a lot of, I'd covered a lot of movies like that, like Copycat was another movie that I had covered, that I wrote coverage on. But Seven was by far the best screenplay I'd ever read. I had no idea where it was going to go. It was shocking. And by the time I got to the end, I was stunned. Literally stunned. And, yeah, amazing. Amazing. Loved it. Loved it. So there you go. There's my story, and I'm sticking to it. So, yeah, that's the way it is. And those are it. And those haven't changed. I mean, I wish maybe that they would have changed, but no, they hadn't changed. And yeah, so I can stick by that. Let's see. You guys are saying lots of stuff, so let me jump over and see what's up over here and who's where and all of that. Let me go back down to here. Willow says, the mind boggles at the image of a pregnant Superman cruising the skies of Metropolis. Batman would refuse to be seen with him. Strange new jokes would circulate the prisons, and the race of Krypton would be safe at last. I do not know who said that. I know I should probably know this, but I don't. So, Willow, I'm going to find out where you got this from. Where did you get this from? I know everybody's going, we know where it came from, but for some reason I'm missing it. The Man from Krypton. Ooh, a closer look at Superman. That's Larry Niven's. I see what you did there. You went and found that essay about procreating. If Superman could procreate. I love that you do that. Yeah, that was Larry Niven's article. It's very interesting. Yeah. I love that. Man of Steel, Woman of Kleenex. It's true. Everybody should find. As a matter of fact, I'm going to put it right here. I'll put it in the everybody. I'm glad you like that, Willow. This is an article about whether Superman could procreate with Lois Lane and what it would all mean and all of those things. Here it is. I put it in the live chat. Let's try it there. Or maybe it was in the live chat. Oh, it's too long. I can't put it in the live chat. Well, maybe I can find it. Well, if you can, it's Man of Steel, Woman of Kleenex by Larry Niven, the great Larry Niven, who I was just on a podcast with recently. So check that out. Willow goes on and says, which scene in Raiders of the Lost Ark did your mom say lacked verisimilitude? My mom complained about Indiana taking out dozens of Nazis by himself and getting dragged by a truck without getting seriously injured. She now refers to him as Superman. Well, Willow, you nailed it. When my mom would always go to the movies with me. If there was a movie I really liked, I would see it multiple times. And she always made it a point to be like, I'm going to go to the movies with you and see these films that meant something to you. So we went and saw Raiders, and we left the Factoria Cinemas in Bellevue, and she was very quiet on the way home. And I said, Mom, what's wrong? What'd you think of the movie? And she just said, that could never happen. And I'm like, what do you mean that can never happen? And she goes, well, when Indiana Jones is being dragged behind the truck with his bullwhip, I mean, the gravel and the dirt and it was in his face, and he could never hold on. That could never have happened. And I was like, well, Mom, what about like the power of God coming out of the Ark of the Covenant and vanquishing the Nazis? And my mom's like, oh, no, that could happen, like Moses parting the Red Sea. But he could never hold on with his bullwhip getting that gravel in his face. It would have gotten in his eyes, and I was like, wow, everything you need to know about my mom is in a nutshell right there. So that's what she thought, just like your mom. Senor Ashish is here. And Senor Ashish says, 15 years ago, Batman Begins, a seminal masterpiece of the comic book movie genre, successfully rebooted Warner Brothers' retired Batman movie franchise. Wow, where has the time gone? It's as if I just saw it yesterday. Both Batman Begins and The Dark Knight changed the genre forever. Well, Senior Ashish is correct. Today is actually the 15th anniversary of Christopher Nolan's The Dark Knight. It's true. And I really love The Dark Knight. I mean, I really loved Batman Begins. I thought it was really, really good. I didn't love it, but I really liked it. I thought it was respectable. I guess because it kind of, in a way, Batman Begins has sort of it's a little monotone, if that makes any sense. But I still really, really liked it. I loved Christian Bale in it. I loved most everything about it. Ben Cortez sends in a tip and says, hi, Rob, have you watched the TENET prologue? Yes. I saw it in IMAX, and I thought it was amazing. It's the best thing I saw in theaters this year, and I watch it every day in anticipation for TENET. Also, you inspired me to start a physical media collection. I just bought the first Dune book and a few 4Ks. Well, Ben, I hope I've not led you down some horrible path that you will later regret, but I think you're doing all right with the Dune book and some 4Ks. Which 4Ks did you buy, and do you have them yet? By the way, I should mention that today the Columbia Classics was released, so Lawrence of Arabia is now on 4K. Dr. Strangelove is on 4K. Jerry Maguire is on 4K. They all come in that set, so that's pretty exciting. I love the TENET prologue when I saw it. You don't really know exactly what's going on, but man, it was pretty breathtaking. Can't wait to see it. The movie looks incredible. So yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing the movie. I'm just dying to see TENET. Seeing smart adult genre fare that's done so elegantly and in such a grand, big budget fashion. Who doesn't love that? Seduce Screening Room sends in a super chat and says, Manifest gets season 3, but no Hannibal season 4. No justice. Stephen Foley sends in a super chat and says, I hate Watch Manifest. Such a pile. Me too. But in my hate, I learned it's not like how much I hate Star Trek Picard and Star Trek Discovery. I don't hate them like I hate those shows, which are truly wretched to me. Manifest has a charm. There's a charm in that the writers, the people who created the show, they created an impossible premise. Nothing that they've done on their show works. They're trying to do a procedural, yet the way they got there is nonsensical and makes no sense, and they keep trying to figure out. They don't know where they're going. They don't know what's happening, so they keep trying to do something, and it's a glorious thing to behold. Alexander Wilson is here, and he says, you said Kareem Abdul-Jabbar was known since the 70s. Sweet summer child, your sports knowledge is lacking. Kareem was a superstar in high school in '65. Yeah, but I wasn't even born then. Correct. He was in the most watched college ball game in '68. He was a pioneer during the civil rights era. Well, yeah, no, I mean I knew that about him, but I was too young. I knew who Kareem Abdul-Jabbar was as a kid because my dad watched Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, but I didn't know his history. Yeah, and now, I mean, I love the fact that Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, like you just said, was magic on the courts in high school, worked as a civil rights activist. I mean, now the guy is writing Sherlock Holmes novels about Mycroft Holmes, and he writes for Veronica Mars, and he's become an essayist, and it's just, I love that. What a life. I mean, if you're going to pattern your life after somebody, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar is one of those guys that you've got to like. Plus, he was in Airplane. He acted. I mean, Bruce Lee, and he's what a life he's had. I mean, to me, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar represents like the great American life. You're a championship sportsman, and then you go on and you become an artist and a writer. I mean, what a life that guy's had. I've got nothing but love for Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, and his name is Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, which, I mean, talk about icing on the cake. What a great name. Hey, aren't you Kareem Abdul-Jabbar? No, kid. I mean, you try and take Bill Walton up and down the court for 50 minutes. He's what an American. What an American that guy is. James Lucas sends in a super chat and says, Rob, been wanting to support a content creator. You win. Well, thank you, James. I appreciate that. Much content on Patreon or just send a few super chats a month. Love your passion. Thanks. Well, either way, James, but look, I always look at it this way. If you're going to support the channel, which I very much appreciate, I think it's most fun when people send in tips or super chats so there's something to talk about, and I can hear you and see what you have to say and read your name and I love that. I love that. I think that's the best. That's the best way to do it. So you're doing just fine, sir. And I appreciate that I've won the content creator sweepstakes. Thank you very much. That's very much appreciated. Bob Tozy, is it Tozy? Sends in a tip and says, I recently bought the Justice League Wonder Woman hot toy. I gotta say it was weird ordering something from Sideshow that was in stock and delivered quickly, and I didn't have to wait a year for it. Where's my Endgame cap? Dude, Bob, you know what's funny? So I have the Wonder Woman hot toy. The Justice League, I've never opened it. It's one of the Elizabeth's new saying to me is free the toys, free the toys. I've never opened my Wonder Woman hot toy. I mean, I've slid it. It's right over there. Well, here. It's the Wonder Woman Deluxe hot toy, and I've never opened it. I mean, I've slid it out like this. You can't really see it, but yeah, I've never taken her out of the box, and I've never taken her out of the box. I'll tell you why. This is kind of weird. I've never taken her out of the box because I was waiting to get all of the other Justice League hot toys. I know that's kind of a weird thing to do, but and to be honest, I have the Batman, I have Flash, I have Aquaman, but I don't have Superman yet. He's on a payment plan. And then I have an actual Cyborg, a 6 scale statue of Cyborg because they didn't make Cyborg. I mean, come on. I really wanted a hot toy of Cyborg. Why didn't they make it? Like, why? That's a bummer, man. The obvious thing to say would be because they're racist. No, I think it's only because that Cyborg would be a difficult. Even the statue I have, the 6 scale statue, that would be a rough figure to do for them. Even though they've done other figures like Ultron, I'm hoping they do. I'm hoping that the Snyder Cut will hopefully be the impetus to release a Cyborg figure from Hot Toys, because I'd love to have, well, obviously the Justice League all in 6 scale. But what do you think of it? Have you opened it? It looks like a great figure to me. And I had to get the deluxe with the fur and everything. Lancelot Narayan is here, and he says, I love Bernie Wrightson's work, and I'm so sad he's left us. Do you like his work? I love Bernie Wrightson. Also, how can you prefer omnibus editions over individual comics? Come on, man. The feel of, the smell, nothing like it. Okay, Lancelot, look. What do you want me to tell you? I love my individual comics. You know, I keep showing this because this is one of my favorite comic covers of all time, by the way. This is Moon Knight 30, and this is the last issue of Moon Knight that Bill Sienkiewicz, this is in a Mylar sleeve. This is the last issue of, you can't really see it. There you go. The last issue of Moon Knight that Bill Sienkiewicz drew of his run. And like, look, man, I like individual comics, but when you get old, long boxes full of comics are a pain in the ass. I like omnibuses. You take them off. You can enjoy the stories. And I love hardcover books. I have a hardcover book fetish. And I know it's probably silly because what are you going to do with them? Bernie Wrightson, I love Bernie Wrightson's work. Bernie Wrightson was known for things like, well, Swamp Thing, and he worked in the horror medium. His Frankenstein's amazing. Also, he did Cycle of the Werewolf for Stephen King. And Bernie Wrightson's an amazing comic artist, and he tended to horror was his big deal, and he's amazing. Twin Flicks is here and says, "Hello, Rob. Did you see and IDF? Oh, did you see, and if so, I guess, what did you think of Toby Hooper's remake of Invaders from Mars?" I haven't seen it since it came out, and I just picked up the Shout Collector's Edition Blu-ray, and looking forward to revisiting it 30 years later. You know what, Twin Flicks? Just like you, I only saw it once. I liked it. I love the original Invaders from Mars. I liked his. I did. I thought it was pretty good. I would like to see that again. I forgot that came out. I'll have to order that. I liked it. I thought it was good. Stubble McShave sends in a tip and says, I found that almost everything is interesting if you study it in detail. Things are uninteresting and dull when you just look at something with a cursory glance. I'm thinking of writing a letter about the dullest thing in the world, and I think you'll like it. Stubble, I agree with you. I think most things, I always say, people point out, they say, you say things are interesting a lot. I'm with you. I think most things are interesting. Like, pick a subject, a thing, a flower. Like, you start reading about a flower. Like, flowers are nice. I like flowers. But I think when you start drilling down and finding out about flowers, and suddenly they become really interesting. I find myself, I'm interested in most things. There are a few things in life that I'm not interested in, especially when somebody starts. Like, I love meeting a person that does a job I know nothing about, or a job that I never thought much about. But you start hearing about whatever it is, it doesn't matter. I'm like, well, that's interesting, and I truly mean that. It is interesting. I would love you to read a letter that you write about something that's dull. I bet it's not dull. A Spectator sends in a tip and says, 102, hey, Rob, there's a 3-part anime series on Netflix called Berserk. Dude, I know. A dark fantasy set in a medieval-inspired setting. It tells the story of Guts, a mercenary born into war who suffered abuse and trauma throughout his upbringing. He eventually joins another mercenary group called the Band of the Hawks, led by a man named Griffith. It is a very dark and bloody show and touches on themes such as existential trauma and flawed philosophies. Watch the first episode and you'll be hooked immediately. I know this show. I have not seen it. I've seen a lot of cool statues from it, though. And yes. I have to watch it because, well, it sort of relates to something I might have been working on lately. Which is yet unannounced. But yes, I need to watch Berserk. And I haven't watched, you know what? I was like, what I watched, it was something on YouTube. I don't even know what it was. I mean, it's right up my alley. I don't know why I haven't sat down to watch it yet. And I love, like, the Prime One Studios makes a statue of it, of, I guess, the main character, which is awesome. So yeah, that's definitely something I mean to catch up with. I mean, I was watching Castlevania, and then I needed to watch that for something I'm working on. So Mukbang sends in a super chat and says, did you get to see The Five Bloods on Netflix yet? I didn't yet. What did you think of it? I thought it was very good. Great visuals and performances. I have yet to watch it. I'm probably going to watch it tonight, to be honest. Yeah. So, yes. Jason Bueno sends in a super chat and says, "Do you collect or have any of the black and white Eastman and Laird Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles?" Yes, I do. Yes, I do. I do, and I love the dark and gritty beginnings to what became a kid-friendly franchise. Oh, yeah, I mean, it started out as like a Frank Miller parody and stuff like that. Those first books, I mean, I would, honestly, I would never part with them. But, yes, I have those. You know what else, though? It's funny you mentioned that. Totally unrelated. Well, I'd have to find it. I have a parody of a parody. So I have a parody called Radioactive Adolescent Black Belt Hamsters. And I just found those. I think I'm going to get, I have the first 2 issues. I think I'm going to get them graded just because. And they sell pretty well if they're graded. Bob Kowal sends in a tip and says, Joel Silver has a rep for being a hard ass, but I give him big props for his preservation efforts with the Frank Lloyd Wright houses. Absolutely. You probably know his company's logo is the pattern of a block from one of those houses. I do. P.S. I ordered the Hills Blu-ray. Yes. Well, thank you, Bob. I want to hear what you have to say. It's pretty lurid. The Hills Run Red is lurid. I'll be curious to hear what you think, and thanks for ordering that. I appreciate it. For those of you who might not have heard, Hills Run Red is out on Blu-ray today. So check it out. Order it. It's a movie I produced. I developed it with Dave Parker over a couple of years, and then we were able to flip it to Warner Brothers, and we made it for Warner Premiere, and we made it with Dark Castle, Joel Silver's Dark Castle Entertainment. Very proud of this film, and it's nice to see. I thought it had fallen into obscurity, but no. Shout Factory or Scream Factory put it out on Blu-ray today, and it's packed, if you didn't know, with special features done by me and Dave Parker, or Dave Parker and I. So, yes, Emil Johansson is here, and he sends in a super chat, and he says, I bought digital comics, now I want physical instead. Man, I'm with you, dude. I'm with you. Like, I've been going through, I just am, like, I'm amazed. Like, I'll give you an example, for instance. So I'm going through my comics, right? And what's interesting about my long boxes is some of them are arranged by just year. Like, I need to go through and put them all together. But then I like today I found something. I don't even know what this is. This is an Epic comic put out by Epic, Marvel's Epic Comics. I don't even know what this is. I looked at it, I bought this, and I'm like, what is this? Obviously, it's a prestige format. As you can see, it's brand new. It looks brand new off the rack. It's Pete Craig Russell, Glenn Fabre, Scott Hampton, Steve White. I mean, this is, I don't even know what this is. It looks cool. A1 Book 1. The art looks good. I mean, this looks like an anthology comic of some kind. I have no idea. I have no memory of this comic. I have no memory of buying this comic. I have it. That's pretty much half my collection. I'm like, what is this? Like, why do I have this? But I'm going to be getting rid of my comics, and it's kind of fun. Stephen Foley sends in a super chat and says, hey, Rob, on Send Live today, they were talking about cry time movies or moments where there are many. And one of my faves from newer movies is from Guardians 2. You look like Mary Poppins. Is he cool? Yeah, he's cool. I mean, that's a good one. I like that one, Steven. I mean, that's a really good, that's a great moment. Especially in the context of Guardians 2. I really like Guardians of the Galaxy 2. I like the themes of family and putting together broken families, or what happens when you come from a broken family and how do you deal with that. I think that movie does not. Everyone's like, well, it's not as good as Guardians of the Galaxy 1, and I'm like, I don't know about that. Like, I know that Guardians 1 it's unique and it's so much fun, but I think Guardians 2 is a pretty ballsy movie. Yeah, I mean, I like Guardians 2. So that's a good one. I mean, people are asking me a lot about cry time movies, and I talk about, well, I cry, and I cried in The Color Purple. I cried in Star Trek 2. I cried in Amelie. I'm sure there's other movies I've cried in. At the Shawshank Redemption, the first time I saw it, I probably cried because I'd read that story so many times. I was crying just to see that the movie existed, which was a lot of fun. Mukbang sends in a super chat and says, Did you see the Gallery Mandalorian episode about the score? I didn't. I'm behind. I'm behind on the Gallery Mandalorian shows. It was fascinating. I love that theme song. I love that theme song too. I think it's great. I got to watch it. Brandon Valenzuela sends in a super chat and says, have you been to the Playboy Mansion and what was it like? Yes. I was lucky in that my friend Marina's husband, Jose, who was Marc Chagall's last student, had sold some paintings to Hugh Hefner. So I was able to go to a few parties at the Playboy Mansion, and this was, I want to say this was in 2002 or 3. It was pretty interesting. I mean, there was a lot of, the parties there were epic, and they were they were just like you would imagine they would be, but not as debauched as you might think. I mean, yes, there was a lot of playmates running around and girls in scantily clad or nothing at all. But there was also a lot of old Hollywood there. I met Brian Grazer at a party. I met Martin Landau at a party. As a matter of fact, I had a long conversation. I sat down and talked to Martin Landau for like an hour. I mean, only I would go to a Playboy Mansion party and end up talking to Martin Landau about his career. But that's what I did. And he liked talking to me because I knew he was in North by Northwest, you know, and so we talked. And one day, if you ever find me at, I can't tell it. I will not tell it on the show. but if you ever find me at a convention, ask me to tell you the story about Neil Patrick Harris and Martin Landau. And one day I want to meet Neil Patrick Harris, and I want to ask him about this and ask him if he remembers the story that I will tell you. And it involves both of them, but not together. It involves Neil Patrick Harris seeing something and wanting other witnesses to what it was he saw. And I'm one of those other witnesses. So if you ever want to know, find me at a convention, and I will not put it in writing. I'll just tell you. Maybe one day I'll put it on video, but I can't tell you what it is. But it's a great story, and you will have mad respect for Martin Landau after you hear it. Brendan Sheehy sends in a super chat, and he says, I think Leon the Professional is a Cry Time movie. You know what? I have to tell you, when it's at the end, when The Shape of My Heart starts playing, I did cry the first time I saw The Professional, because you hear the score and it gives way, and you can tell it's going to be Shape of My Heart, and like Matilda's planting the plant, and that music plays. I would definitely say that is the case. I have a great Leon action figure, by the way. It's 6-scale action figure. It's fantastic, and I loved it. But that's I do at the that at the end elicits a tear. It does, absolutely does. That's a good call. A good call on that. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I think I'm going to bring an end to Robservations episode number. What were you on? 443 now. And I do, since the day has come, I would be remiss if I did not mention to my compatriot Dave Parker and offer congratulations. I consider it's interesting. I mean, I joke about it. You're not going to have to hear me talk about it anymore because it's out. I've done what I can to market The Hills Run Red. But it's interesting when you make a film, and The Hills Run Red started out as this project was sort of brought to us, and we kind of took it and ran with it. And it was a 3-year odyssey from the time we started on the project. It was 2006 to 2009. And sometimes projects don't end. And with this, I really feel like that now that it's come out on Blu-ray, it's sort of ended its journey. I don't see it ever being on 4K. I mean, you never know, but I doubt it. And I really feel like I can close the door on a chapter of my life, because I was carrying around these tapes that I had shot, and why did I have them? Like, should I have thrown them away? Like, what was the point? And, since we were quarantined, I was able to get these tapes. I had to go rent a deck because I no longer had a deck that played their HDV tapes. I didn't even know, would they have dropouts in them or whatever. And I think I was able to mine most of the stuff that I shot. So it's pretty cool. So I'm very happy. If you hate the movie, I even think the disc is worth getting because the behind the scenes material and even the stuff that I was able to put on that disc, there's interviews with, for instance, Bill Sadler. And the way I did the interviews was I wanted them to be behind the scenes pieces. So you have sit down interviews with the cast, but then I used all of this behind the scenes footage and I tried to make it so you know what I was thinking of, more fly on the wall. So it's not a lot of cutty, flashy pieces. There's a lot of long takes where you get to watch a movie being made. So I hope people enjoy that aspect of it. It was certainly fun for me to go back in and, obviously I had to edit an interview of myself, but it was myself back in 2008 talking about the film, and I kind of explained my part of the story was, how did this movie get there? How did it become a Silver Pictures movie? So I told that story, but it was a fun thing to do, and I'm really proud of the fact that, look, the movie's lurid and it's not for everybody. I mean, it opens with a kid cutting off his own face and sewing on a baby's mask. Yeah, it's truly a splatterpunk movie. But it's great to have gone on this journey with my friend Dave Parker, who directed, and then also Dave Scow. And it was interesting because Dave Scow, who wrote it, was the first person, I was a fan of his work, a fan of his books, and he wrote the first movie I ever worked on, which was Texas Chainsaw Massacre 3, that I worked on in the summer of 1989. So it was kind of cool to have these compatriots of mine, and we were able to make The Hills Run Red. So there you go. Stephen Foley sends in a super chat and says, Rob, it's so amazing that we have a place to talk movies. Thank you, sir. Well, absolutely. I'm happy to have this place to talk movies. I got somebody, a gentleman who watches this show, asked if I would come on and talk movies and things, and he's out of Poland. And I did an interview with an Irish station not too long ago, and it's been fun talking movies with people around the world. I mean, that's what, if nothing else, the Post-Geek Singularity is about our community. And I think it's great. Hi, Rob. Even though it's one of my favorite shows, I'm having a difficult time rewatching The Shield. Hell, I forgot that the pilot episode ends with an officer killing one of his own guys in cold blood. Man, I love The Shield, but in light, I can see where you're coming from. It's a rough show. And that's why, I find it interesting that people are saying these articles about how there's so many cop shows on TV that glorify the police, but then I think, well, there's also a lot of shows that do not, like the Shield and The Wire. Even though I love The Wire, and I love The Shield too. But you're right, especially in light of everything. But remember, I think it's important to remember that while there are bad apples in any walk of life, I think there's a lot of great cops too. I've had a lot of great experiences with cops over the years. And when I had not so great experiences, they were self-inflicted. But for the most part, I've worked with law enforcement in a professional capacity. And, I've known a few in my life. And I think law enforcement is a very noble profession. And we can't forget that. We can't forget that. And I think our men and women in blue, all people who serve this country, it is not an easy job. And the idea that we expect them to be saints all the time. I mean, obviously, there's a real problem. I do think that there's a problem with the use of force. But then again, if you think about it, cops are called upon and asked to deal with everything from domestic disturbances to traffic stops, and they live in an environment where you never know what you're going to find. I mean, there's a movie called End of Watch, David Ayer's End of Watch, that I think is a pretty great film. And you realize I'm like, I never wanted to be a cop after watching that movie. But yeah, The Shield is it's rough, man. And you absolutely. But anyway, I want to thank you for all the support. I want to thank you all for being here, and thank you for writing letters. If you want to write me letters, I will read them. Just send them to me at the Burnettwork.net. That's my website. Mike Bodden says he's been so busy, he's going to start making sure that the website is updated. It really has been. We've been slacking off since February. So I apologize for that, but your letters are all going to get up onto the website and things like that. So you, if you have them, usually most of the letters I've read on the show go up on the website, and they will. Over the last couple months, we haven't done that, but they all will be going up. So, and yeah, and if I haven't reminded you, The Hills Run Red is available now. 6.5 hours of bonus features. It actually has more. It's 6.5 new bonus features, hours of bonus features, and that includes, of course, 2 new commentaries. But I want to thank you all for being here, and I want to thank the Richard for moderating. I want to thank Haynock for coming on and moderating. I want to thank Mike Bodden. I still want to thank Jim Boyers and his wife Heidi. And Louis Yu had to pull back from moderating because he's taking care of a family member. But and Jordy Lyons is also taking some time to himself, but they'll be back perhaps. And it's great to have everybody here. So thank you for that. And so ends Robservations, episode number 443. Remember, every person you meet has a story to tell you have yet to hear. And all you have to do is listen. And with that, I would say, have a better day. I'll be back on the John Campy Show tomorrow, barring technical problems, and we'll announce our Eliza Views whining about movies tonight. I don't know what it is yet, but I'm sure it's going to be great. So, have a better day.